Contemporary practice, exercise 4.2, organising your archive. Now, I've already recorded a video of how I've organised my archive. I organised drawings and so forth, and mark making and note making, and where to make links, and developed ideas. And I've placed all these into a box. Now, I've pulled this archive back to my sketchbook so that I've got consistency within the sketchbook so that the whole of the assignment flows. And so here, this page just literally is a reflection of the archives that I've used, and I've gone back to personal, local history and ancient cultural histories, and I've just bullet pointed a few ideas of how I've actually broken the archive down. Now, I've used photographic evidence here, and this is part of my personal archive, where I originally started off with an original document, a junior school report, and this then turned into sampling and so forth. And I've just gone ahead and wrote down a few pointers of the document, dates, names, and so forth. And as that piece of document started to develop, I've engaged in layering with paper and so forth, because I still wanted to use paper and mark making and various types of paper to document the samples and so forth. So this has then led on to making links and ideas, and the ink resonated sort of, smudges, and this is why I added water to the ink pen writing. And this all happened sort of like naturally. It then related to things like blotting paper, and then overlaying and doing some simple drawing, tracing the school report, which kind of resonates that we use a lot of tracing paper at school. Started to produce mark making, which for me resonated what you would get from the sewing machine, embroidery, freehand, and then little sort of bullet pointed ideas through here. I started to make links with kind of voices from the school report, voices of the teacher, voices of what I was doing and where I was at. And then I kind of started to think with the mark making, it started to resemble, heartbeats and life support machines. And then, possible links with music paper and music links. And this is where, through my artist research, McMurray had used paper song sheets as a large scale piece of work, resonating, voices and songs of the past. So that worked really well. Moving on, I then went up a grade to the comprehensive school and dissected another school report, restitched the pages, and this then started to resonate patchwork and patchwork quilts, with, again, freehand stitching and letter writing, my name, that I'd overtraced. And then overlaying even more with tracing paper, we can see that we've got, here, more patchwork with inks and kind of, working within the boundaries and the areas, and just going with intuitive ideas, and just working really over and over. And I think that this started to link to kind of quilts and storytelling, and reminded me a little bit of an aerial view of possibly a farm field. So, leading on, we then dissected a card report, and I did made the same application again with ink and so forth. Again, this kind of resembled a music sheet, but then when I started to look at it, I started to look at mark making and breaking the rules and breaking the lines of the school report, and fragments and lines that start to develop within the sampling I think looking back so far with the samples, they all do start to resonate and have a similar sort of theme of an archive type artifact. And I think it's been a really good way for me to organise this in such a manner, because I can kind of then break down the information and see the process that I'm actually working on. Here I used some very, very personal information, and these were reflective words, angry words and sad words and so forth. And then from my personal archive tin that I've mentioned previously, I used, objects that had been collected over the years and so forth, still keeping the layering of paper. Now, this did sort of start to resemble map making, but it also started to link with headstones, which I'd had started to look at, as previously mentioned in the assignment, within local history. So this was now taking shape and form, and I'd started to look at ghosts and things in an abstract manner, faded words, and how headstones start to weather and so forth. And I think this is starting to, resonate as an idea here. One of the final ideas that I have done is I took an old passport and dissected that, and that was quite interesting because there's quite a lot of detail in a passport, page numbers, and some very, very interesting colour. Also as well, I think it resonates to personal identity. So again, dissecting this and putting it together and working in the same manner of overlaying paper and drawing and mark making, it was kind of making this have a couple of links to, aerial views of farm fields. This could possibly resonate drawings on a map where, hedges and hedgerows and so forth. But I'd also, with this image here, where it had started to translate through the photograph of the passport, I'd started to consider, identity, because that's what a passport is. And was I hiding my identity? Which again started to give some more ideas and developments. And then for one of the final samples and ideas for this project, I started to piece together the envelopes from old letters and school reports, and discovered that there's different qualities of paper and texture. Handwritten, if you're going to handwrite a letter, stationery there is a better quality to the brown envelope of a school report and so forth. And again, I've used and ripped up words and letters and overlaid and so forth. And as we can see here, this looks more of an older type map in history and so forth, starting to resonate stitching from the sewing machine. I've started to look at the lines of my drawing and so forth. And the other interesting thing that appeared from this was dates and addresses. So overall, this part of my personal archive did make quite a few links by using simple techniques of the mark making. Fragments became an important part. Fragments of writing, fragments of quilt making, patchwork, fragments of headstones and letters. So I think this really kind of pulled together the idea of developing ideas and also making links from a collection of evident photographs.